Monkeypox, it's here. For the first time, we have an outbreak across several continents of monkeypox, which is the monkeypox virus. The first time you can't blame SARS-CoV-2. This time it's monkeypox, and it has its prodrome symptoms, fevers, headache, muscle pain, swollen lymph nodes, and then finally the crusting rash of monkeypox. And the internet is abuzz about it. People are talking about it all the time. Of course, SARS-CoV-2, it's not as exciting to talk about. Now we got to talk about monkeypox. But the reason I'm doing this video is that I saw something tweeted from the New York Health Department and actually says, quote, "Masks can protect against monkeypox." That's what the tweet said about the New York Health Department statement. Masks can protect against it. And presumably, that means that they're advising community masking to avoid monkeypox. And I just want to say this. Can we at least this time, can we get some evidence for some of these? Can we at least do some evidence-based medicine? Can we at least do some evidence-based medicine? Can we at least learn something this time before we go all in on all sorts of precautions? Can we at least learn something? What do I have to say about this? I don't know what to say. I think people have no idea whether this is going to, continue to propagate and pick up steam or die out on its own. I think people have no idea which direction it's going. One of the mistakes I think people made in the beginning of the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic is that they were very dismissive of SARS-CoV-2 up front. They said it was much less severe than flu. Flu was way worse. And they made sort of a classic mistake that I think Nicholas Taleb was probably the best at articulating, which is they didn't account for the fat tail probability distribution. What does he mean by that? He means that when you talk about people drowning in pools or falling off ladders, that's a rather static commodity. So many people have that happen to them year over year, and it's going to be that many people in the future because we're not on a building spree of new pools. But when you talk about something like terrorism or something like an infectious disease, you really don't know that there isn't going to be a moment in the future where it just has an explosive worst-case scenario event. And so you should be a lot more cautious about things that you just don't know has sort of more variability, more randomness to it. And I'm sure that, like all viruses, infectious disease, it fits the bill. So is this going to become a big deal or not a big deal? Who knows? I don't know. But what I do know is it's very bizarre for the New York Health Department to be advising people in the lay public, in the lay community, that they should try to mask to avoid monkeypox. Somebody pointed out, Todd Lee, a doctor in Canada, that if he's called to the bedside of somebody with monkeypox, he's going to wear an N95 mask. And I don't fault him for that, because if you're called to the bedside of somebody with a condition, you might want to do the most precautious thing until you at least sort things out. But that's a very different thing than a blanket recommendation for a population to do something. And I think those kind of recommendations need evidence, or at least ongoing attempts to get evidence, and we don't see that in this case. And I think, obviously, that if this had happened 5 years ago, no one in their right mind would have been saying, now's the time to mask up. They're only saying this because they still suffer from COVID mania, where COVID is on their brain, that's all they're thinking about. It's all consuming. I read, like many people, brushed up on my monkeypox, learning about the smallpox vaccine, how it has some effectiveness. I'd love to see more information about that, how people have tried ring vaccination around people who are exposed to try to stop it from spreading, contact tracing, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very different virus, has very different properties, very different ability to spread, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's premature to turn this into the next thing we're all worried about. And I also think it's premature to make blanket population-level health recommendations without having some evidence for those claims. So, those are my preliminary thoughts on this. I think, honestly, that if we hadn't just escaped the pandemic, people would have had a very different barometer on this. The internet wouldn't be abuzz with monkeypox. I think people would be much more distanced from it, feel sort of a little bit calmer about it, not be saying things like the New York Department of Health says that, masks can protect against monkeypox. They wouldn't be saying things like that. I think that wouldn't have happened if this had all happened 5 years ago. But, you should never trivialize an infectious disease. You never know what's going to happen. But I think the key thing is whatever you do in response this time or any time in the future, whatever it may be, let's figure out a way to do things so that we learn from it. We can implement things, but let's do it in a controlled fashion. Let's have staggered implementation. Let's have step wedge design. Let's have cluster randomization. Let's do it in a way that you'll actually learn more on the back end. And when you don't do that, which is what SARS-CoV-2 was, we just did a lot of stuff. I mean, tens of trillions of dollars of stuff. We just did it. We didn't learn anything. And what are you left with? You're left with no conclusive evidence on whether or not masking kids and masking kids in school works or not. No cluster randomized trials, at least, and a lot of observational studies that, have a lot of limitations. You're left with a vaccine campaign in kids that is based on test negative case control designs that has some ambiguity and some problems that I've discussed in prior videos. You're left with a lot of uncertainty on key questions. And when you have scientific uncertainty, that's a vacuum that politics loves to fill. Politics fills the vacuum of scientific uncertainty, and so it'll naturally have a right-left valence, it'll have a red-blue valence, it'll have a political valence, and these questions that are supposed to be settled by empirical studies are settled by the loudest political voice or whichever political party has created the biggest tent and the biggest coalition. And that's not the way science should be handled. So, I don't know about monkeypox. I don't know if it's going to be the next thing. I do think it's a little interesting that people are already saying the best thing you can do is mask up. I don't think they would say that if this happened 5 years ago and they weren't in a, continued fervor about masking, which has become a badge of being a good person. I don't think they would have said any of that stuff. And it's a very different virus, and you just can't extrapolate, and you don't know what the future will bring. And that's where we are. So, that's all I got. If you like this video, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a message below. Until next time.